I was born and raised in Astoria. I used to hang out in Astoria Park. I used to hang out down by the milk farms. There used to be this thing called the milk farms by 171 Park on 30th Avenue and 21st Street.
I moved here in Astoria 10 years ago from Italy because I love acting.
My very first experience with Astoria was also figuring out the difference in Astoria and Long Island City, and if that's a border and where that border is.
My husband got a job in Astoria, so he was a reverse commuter.
I thought, okay, I guess I can't afford Manhattan. So I'd come to know Astoria just a little bit because my sister had married and bought a house here on 33rd over by the Neptune Diner.
My friend Zach, who I met at auditions for Hairspray, he was like, hey, I just got an apartment. I need a roommate. Would you want to come down here? And I was like, sure.
And I came over and thought, well, I'll give it a try.
Because it was cheaper than Manhattan. And I had a friend here.
I moved to Astoria actually when I was about 4 years old.
When I came to New York, I came to Astoria. We've been in the same place for 10 years.
It was affordable then. It was a nice location in terms of the subways he needed to get and the one I needed to get to work.
So my husband's boss actually loaned us the money to buy a place in Astoria.
Just a beautiful apartment, large 1-bedroom, huge living room.
It's how I will always think of Astoria. It was a 2-bedroom, it didn't really have a living room, and the landlord lived literally next door and made his own wine.
It wasn't gonna get better for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't get better.
My first experience with Astoria is I stayed with friends here spring break of my senior year when I was visiting New York.
I thought I was on the train forever because I thought like the West Village was like New York.
Yeah, when my husband died 6 years ago, and I created my own meetup group so that I could get out and meet people. And one day one of the ladies walked in and said, she was brand new, and she said, if anybody wants to try out for the Senior Stars, it's 2 days from now. And I was like, oh, this sounds like fun. So I tried out. When I was very young, I was originally a theater arts major, but then I met my husband, quit school, had kids, the whole thing. So I do have that background and that love of theater. But this was really fun because I got to do it without the same kind of pressures.
And I just love it because it's my community, and that's the best part of living in Astoria, is that it's a community.
The community of Astoria is community. I mean, there's such a communal feel to everything.
I guess what I love most about Astoria is that there are so many people of so many different backgrounds.
Gotten to go see cool things that my friends do, or they've told me about cool things that are going on.
The other day I was walking to the park and I saw QED, which I didn't know was a thing. It's so cool.
So we have adult coloring books and screenings, board game meetups, and then of course a lot of comedy shows, storytelling, poetry, music. Yeah.
I was assigned as an IT Awards judge to go review a play in Astoria. It was in sort of a gym at the Boys and Girls Club, and it was way better than I thought it was going to be, so I wrote a letter and said I want to work with you guys.
So I think it's just a really artistic community in general, which I love.
We have a great community where I live now. Every year we have a block party.
I love 30th Avenue. I love that it used to be called Grand Avenue. And every once in a while I give my address as that just to see if the mail comes to me.
All the neighbors are out, we fix food, everybody shares. It's really fun, yeah.
So you go to Manhattan to work, to audition, to have meetings, and that's like where all the stress can happen. But then you can come home to Astoria and it's a bunch of families, and the buildings aren't as tall, so you don't feel as like overwhelmed. And like when it's cold out, the wind tunnels aren't as extreme.
We were leaving Lexington on the N train, and 30 seconds out of Lexington Station, my heart went, and I was like, what just happened? Oh, we left the city. Okay, now I can breathe again.
Manhattan's like a little busy for me to try to sleep there every night, so I like being able to come get off the train in Queens and have a place that feels like a neighborhood.
If you walk straight across 30th Avenue from the train to the river, you get pretty much any flavor of food you want. You hear all the languages that are represented in Astoria. My husband teases me that I can't walk outside without seeing someone I know.
It seemed almost like a cliche in a movie, but to be able to walk down the street, be able to say hey to people, when my family would come visit, they'd be like, you're the mayor of Astoria. And I would have to be like, no, that's just how Astoria works.
Like if you pick like a special little spot that you like to go to? It's like I like Sparrow.
I'm sure you want nice Italian food.
Yeah.
You know where to go, right?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, we
Il
go
Contro Trattoria?
I used to love, when I was the artistic director at APAC, I so confidently could recommend Vesta to audience members who are coming to see shows. It's sort of universally beloved by everybody who goes there.
One of my favorite spots is Ornella Trattoria. He was the first person that I interviewed when I started writing for Why Leave Astoria, and we really hit it off well. Giuseppe Vitarali is his name, him. And I talked about him and I wrote about him, and then to say thank you, he invited me to spend Thanksgiving with his family in Williamsburg. So there was no need to do that. He was just so grateful and so generous that he invited me into his home.
We go to Tasties all the time.
We go to our diner. We've got our diner. Yeah.
The beer garden is one of those like catch-22s because I think everyone should know about it. But over the years, I've watched more and more people learn about it, and it get busier and busier, and more crowded. And now I think I don't want anyone to know about it because I just want to be able to get my pitcher of beer and my sausage and fries.
But I think what I love the most is that there's lots of old and new in Astoria.
Yeah, everyone now can have Studio Square. It's a cool spot too, but I'm fine with my old beer garden, and everyone else can have Studio Square.
Favorite go-to bar is probably Sweet Afton.
I had a favorite spot called Blue Restaurant, but that is now Queen's Comfort. But I do miss Blue Restaurant because they made my very favorite omelet in the whole world. And the lady that was always there that ran everything, she was really nice.
I mean, I love, as far as old places, Taverna Caclades on Ditmars is incredible. And you feel like the history of Astoria, like, while you're there.
My favorite will still be the Brick Cafe. That's, as far as, it's just a nice, homey, warm place.
Got Rose and Joe's Pizza. I'm sure. Have you had Rose and Joe's Pizza? Oh my God. You got to go to Rose and Joe's Bakery, and in the back there they have pizza. It's amazing. And they've been making this pizza ever since I was a kid, like 5, 6 years old. I'm 60 next month.
Oh, Artopolis, the sweets. Delicious sweets on 31st Street, just south of the Ditmars stop.
And then I love some new places, like I love Gossip Coffee on 30th is just opened this year and is so great. And I love the Bonnie Bar up by Ditmars as well, is so cool, great spot.
I actually have a really close-knit group of friends, and we joke that we call ourselves like a cheers group. Like, we all just met at Gleason's on Broadway. I used to work there as a bartender, and that's, in fact, where I met my fiance, and we're getting married this May.
Did you ever go to Rizzo's Pizza on Steinway Street?
No.
Oh, that's another place you got to go to.
The difference between people in Astoria and the rest of the city is, again, the generosity.
So what's your favorite thing about Astoria?
The park?
If you come off an airplane and you're visiting Astoria, I think the first place I will take you straight from the airport is Astoria Park. Because Astoria Park has a beautiful view of Manhattan, and if you're there during sunset, we actually have a sunset in Astoria.
Most of the days I just stay there and read my book, sit in the grass and look at the beautiful view of Manhattan.
Whether it's to go run or have a picnic or make a snowman, that's definitely the place for me.
When we get a good snow, we just want to go have a beer Easter egg hunt, where you just you just put them in the snow, just put beer cans out in the snow. The only fear would be that we'd forget a few and then it would melt and we'd have littered the park.
And I love the fact that you can walk down to the river, you can sit, you can watch the boats go by, you can see people fishing in the water there.
I mean, the hill in Astoria Park is one of my favorite places, overlooking the water. It's so peaceful. It's one of my favorite places in the spring and the summer.
My very favorite thing to do in the park is have picnics, preferably with friends.
I have a couple of friends we used to do, it was basically training for like Spartan races, but we would use the park. And so like run a few miles, but every like quarter mile we'd stop and like jump over benches or, like climb the fence or do something that was kind of an obstacle. And the fall's a great time to do that because the summer it gets busy. Everyone loves to hang out there in the
I
summer.
remember one night we were hanging out down the park. They had the blackout. I think it was in '78.
Yeah.
We were all hanging out. All of a sudden, all Manhattan went dead. You know, because if you're by the river and you're looking at, you can see the skyline. Right?
If we do ever have a blackout and you can't get to Manhattan, you can actually walk to Manhattan because it's about 3.5 miles away from here.
And I think to myself, what a lucky thing that I live in a place where I can actually just walk down to the river and partake in all this magnificence.
Just makes it feel like you live in a small neighborhood.
Because I've been here a long time, I know certain things about Astoria that the younger people don't, and I don't blame them for it, it's not their fault. But just to kind of preserve the history, to me, is kind of important. On Broadway, for example, people have heard this, I'm sure, Christopher Walken's parents used to have a bakery, the Walken Bakery. And not only did he work there as a kid, but Lydia Bastianich, the famous chef, famous Lydia's Cookbook and Lydia's Kitchen and Lydia's TV show, used to work with him too. And this was on Broadway where the hardware store is now. Right next to that was a little butcher shop. And that butcher shop was owned by Rene and his mother. And they were from Alsace. Rene was, he was a big bear of a man. He looked like Santa Claus. Ruddy cheeks, big white apron, typical butcher style. His mother had white hair pulled back in a bun, tall, thin, beautiful, sitting behind the cash register that was one of those magnificent old silver and gold and gilt and embossed pieces. They had all kinds of canned goods, but they also had meats, and I used to go in and buy my pate. The floor was wooden, there was sawdust on the floor. I'm sure it had an embossed ceiling, but I don't really remember that. It was classic. Not even classic Astoria, it was almost classic France. That's how I felt when I went in there. And I recall one time, it was Mother's Day, and I went in to buy pate. And Rene, and I was new to the area, and Rene really did not know me, but I came in once in a while, and he said to me, he said, I need some flowers for my mother. Would you mind going to buy some? And he gave me some money, and I went across and bought flowers for him to give his mother. I have to tell you that I have a really bad memory for most things. I have never forgotten that shop, that man, and that store. And it's sad to see it go. I love all the new stuff, but sometimes you have to just go back to the old and say, that's what made Astoria so interesting. The little mom and pop stores, the little community neighborhood feel, the more friendly kind of walking down the street saying hi to everybody. I didn't grow up here, but I'm sure that's what it was like back in the day.
When we moved here, it was not a desirable place. It wasn't terrible, but it was a little on the fringe.
I've seen it change a lot over the last 7 years. It used to be just convenience that kept me in Astoria.
I know there's a lot of talk recently about the gentrification of certain parts of Astoria. And I mean, I've lived in New York City for 44 years. And if we remember what New York City looked like in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, parts of gentrification are good.
It was a great place to live. It still is. I mean, but it was a neighborhood.
There are still some mansions from the 1840s over by 12th Street, 14th Street, 27th Avenue. In the 30 years that I've been here, they've actually thrown down quite a few of them and put the most nondescript apartment buildings in their place.
You know, over the years it's been upgrading, and then people can't afford to live in Manhattan anymore, so we became the place to live.
I'm changing with Astoria. So if it's something going on differently, I really cannot say it that way because I feel like part of the change.
I love that Astoria has this great mix of old world but new world. You have the feeling of the people whose families have been here for generations, and you see that on the streets and in the restaurants.
Now it's like the community that I have, the friends that are here, and also the new businesses that are opening. There are a ton of awesome restaurants, awesome coffee shops.
The problem is that families like mine are getting priced out.
Just cool places to go that are sprouting up, and they're only getting more plentiful.
So it's hard to know how to keep the balance.
It's amazing how many new places there are to visit. I mean, I'm sure that's the same for Manhattan, but here it's like you can feel that you're helping like a local business owner. Like they're at the bar, or you know what I mean? Like you can meet them.
There used to be a school PS5. I hope I don't get in trouble for this. I was like 8 years old, 3rd grade, 9 years old. I used to like to play with matches. So there was this school, it was PS5, public school PS5. And playing with matches in the closet. I said, hey, let me light one from school. And we go to recess, all of a sudden, the alarm's going off, fire engines are coming, there's a fire in the classroom. And everything was made out of wood then, like really, like this hardwood. And the school went up in flames. School burnt down. I burnt down my school. No, I didn't say that. I didn't really burn it down. It's just, I didn't mean to burn it down. So my mother comes up to get me, right? Because all the parents had to come and get the kids. So my mother knew I used to like to play with the matches, you know. She grabs my hand. She says, did you have something to do with this? I said, well, Mom, let me tell you what. She said, shut your mouth. Come on, let's go. And we went.
It's a multicultural little city, town, community. You could find everything here, all different kinds of restaurants, churches. It's like every religion, it's like everyone is welcomed in Astoria.
And it's not just because it's close to Manhattan. I think that it's a really special pocket. That's the main reason why, I mean, I'm stuck here. I'll be here forever.
Yeah, I just, you know, if I had won that Powerball the other day, the billions of dollars, I probably would have stayed in Astoria.
Here, I've, met so many interesting people. New York is a great place to live. And Astoria is really nice because I live in a place that feels very, almost suburban. You know, I've got a big backyard, I've got a fish pond, I've got the whole thing.
You know, and my kids are now 10 and 7, and they walk themselves either to dance class or school on their own because they know every single business owner between there and our home.
Never looked back, never looked to Manhattan, never looked to Brooklyn, Astoria or bust.
Bruth Media.